Hi guys, and welcome to this build of Tamiya's Nissan GTR R34 in 1/24th scale. Try to say that 10 times fast. This is my first ever car build, and needless to say, I learned a lot. I'm not sure it's the best kit to start off with. It's, I guess, somewhat complex and a little fiddly and niggly in terms of it has quite a detailed suspension system, but I'm still glad I did it, and as I say, I did learn a lot. So for no real reason other than it's shiny and I guess I'm attracted to shiny objects much like an ostrich, I decided to start off with the etch. That includes cutting them out and just sanding the sides off. And then of course it's time to assemble the chassis. Being Tamiya, it's a pretty good fit, and then just cementing these in place. So I'm going to keep the spoiler separate for now so that it's easier to paint. I'm assembling it in place just to make sure I've got the left and right sides correct. And of course, time to paint. I'm using Vallejo's glossy black primer, which is the base you want to have if you're going to be doing metallic colors. This primer is a little tough to airbrush. It requires a ratio of a little bit more than half airbrush thinners to primer. For the interior, I'm going to go with Vallejo's grey primer. I'm also going to do the first layer of the chassis in grey primer just to be able to spot any fitment issues and to see if there's any bumps or anything on the surface that needs sanding. My little hack solution for priming my etch is just to use some masking tape in a loop on some card, and I'm using Tamiya's metal primer. Then I'm using the window masks that are included with the kit, very carefully placing them, and this glass interior will require black paint on the inside. The undercarriage I've painted gloss black, of course, because this is going to be covered almost entirely in metal paint. Time to sand the surface with 1000 grit paper. As I mentioned before, the suspension has dozens of little pieces that are mostly going to be black, again for the metallic paint. Time to airbrush this glass. Now, being clear plastic, it's very smooth, very shiny. So I'm misting over the layers just to start off with, so that the next layers have something to grip onto. Being careful not to go too thick and heavy with the paint, so that there's running issues, and that would just be a nightmare. I jump onto the chassis, start that, while I leave the misted layer time to dry, and then jump back onto that, building up gradual layers as I go. At the same time, I'm priming all the little bits and pieces that require gloss black. Now moving on to the interior, I'm painting the base layer, Vallejo Gold Grey, and this is going to be the interior trim. Now, there's going to be a few different shades of metallic color on the undercarriage. I'm starting off with the chrome. I've masked off all other areas and laying down the chrome first. While that dries, I'm doing all 4 wheel rims in a gunmetal grey. Now I've unmasked the undercarriage and I'm remasking the area I've just painted to protect that from the new metallic layers. In the meantime, it's time to start thinking about sanding the chassis. The plan of action is to start off on a 2400 grit water paper and work my way down to about 8000. After that, I'll be using Tamiya's polishing compounds, which come in coarse, fine, and finishing. So first things first, I'm just going to sand the primed surface with the higher grits to get it somewhat smooth. You want to leave a little bit of bite on the surface for the paint to grab onto. Time to lay down the chassis color, and here I've selected Vallejo model color, dull aluminum or aluminum, wherever you're from. This is a fantastic airbrush metallic color by Vallejo. It's one of their best products. To my eye, it matches the reference I've seen of these cars. The other thing I quite like about it is metallic paints at scale sometimes give away the scale because the flakes within the metal color is too large given the scale of the vehicle. And this is quite a fine pigment, so I don't have that problem. So for me, it works at scale. For the exhaust system, I'm using some Vallejo metal color gold with a touch of copper and some gold pigment from Green Stuff World. This gives quite a nice gold finish. And this I'm spraying onto the exhaust as per the reference I've seen. While I'm at it, I'm going to do some of the other smaller bits and pieces, mostly suspension pieces, in various steel and chrome finishes. Then it's time to mask the interior. I'm masking the lighter trim leather bits so that I can lay down some Panzer Grey. This is again eye matched from the reference I've seen. I'm using that gold mix I created earlier just to do the brake calipers. And for smaller bits and pieces, I'm painting on some Vallejo metal color with a brush. Although the stuff is perfect for airbrushing straight out of the bottle, it paints on quite nicely too. Same treatment for the interior. Again, it's hard not to brush over some fine lines here, so any mistakes you make, you can easily touch up. These headlight sections require some black paint, which doesn't paint on too easily. In future, I'm going to dissolve this chrome layer off of these parts. Now I want to try a technique I've seen used on aviation models before with a metallic finish. The bottom of the car feels way too perfect and smooth for a vehicle. I'm lightly dusting some Ushi steel polishing powder just to create a little bit of a variance in the metallic finish. Same time, to get the burnt steel look for the exhaust, I'm trying out some Armored Komodo Helix pigment. I wouldn't say this was wildly successful, but for my first car model, I'm happy enough with this. Next time I think I'll actually try an airbrush solution. Now time to varnish. I'm going to seal in the interiors with Tamiya semi-gloss spray. And then I'm using Vallejo's metal varnish to seal in the chassis color. Now, it's not a very high gloss varnish, but it's made to protect their metal pigments. So just one layer of that. And then I'm going to put on 3 layers of Mr. Color Super Clear 3 with about 20 minutes drying time between layers. While that dries, I'm quickly going to jump onto the few decals in the kit. Most of them go onto the interior dash, as you can see here. Time for touch-ups. I should do a wash just to accentuate the detail, not just on the undercarriage but also on the interior of the vehicle. So my usual poison is Vallejo's Model Wash Dark Grey, which you can apply on as thick and heavy as you want, and then give it 5 minutes to dry, and use again Vallejo's airbrush thinners to wipe that off with a cotton bud, or even better, a microfiber cloth. Just note that'll need to go into the wash afterwards. with just about everything painted, it's time to start assembling, finally, at long last. And this for me was the biggest difference in modeling a car, is just how many pieces have to be painted and prepped up front before you can put them together. So patience is very much a virtue when modeling vehicles. This all together, I'm using Ammo's Ultra Glue, which is almost like a PVA glue. It's marketed as an etch and a clear parts glue, which I guess is really what it's for, because it has quite a long drying time and the strength isn't really all there. In hindsight, I think I probably would have used CA, being much stronger, but with a much faster drying time. And given that this was my first car model, I decided the drying time was the deciding factor, but it was a little bit painful. So up to you. If you need the drying time, go with something like this. Otherwise, CA will work fine. Just do a fitment beforehand to make sure everything's going to work. Time to put in the exhaust, it almost acted like a big spring over all these other parts. So I had to use clamps to fix it in position so that the Ammo Ultra Glue had time to dry. Another example of where CA would have possibly worked a bit better. Now this is by far the most finicky part of this model, where you don't want to break anything, you don't want to force any pieces. When it comes time to jam the wheels on, it's a little nerve-wracking because it feels like this brittle little system is about to break. Assembling the interior, and that's all coming together quite nicely. In future models, I would love to do some kind of an interactive light LED display. I was tempted to try something here, but I decided let's rather just get the first car done relatively well and worry about integrated lighting and whatnot on some future projects. Time to polish. Here I'm using Tamiya's coarse polish. Orange peel effect is still there, but By the time you get done with the fine polish and then eventually the finishing polish, it's almost gone. I could have spent another day polishing this thing, but I was relatively happy with the results, again, for my first model. Now, removing the interior mask from the glass section left some horrible glue residue. So again, I'm going to grab my trusty bottle of airbrush thinners with a cotton bud and carefully remove that glue, being careful not to touch the primary paint job. Now, using Vallejo model color transparent colors just to do the taillights. For me, it's a bit of a giveaway when glass parts of the model refract through so that you can see the edge of the glass. By using a black marker to dull them, it hides the scale somewhat. Now it's time to paint on the black trim, which is the rubber strips along the windows as well as the black section between the doors. And here I'm masking them off and airbrushing Vallejo's model color black, which is a matte finish. And of course I'm going to seal that in with Tamiya semi-gloss. Now I'm using ultra glue again just to attach the last of the edge. So that was my first car model. If you're modeling this guy, I have colorized instructions on my Patreon linked below. helps me wrap my head around a paint job before I jump into it. Thanks again for watching. If you've enjoyed this, please like and subscribe to help me grow this channel. I have a bunch of models recently finished. Their videos will be up hopefully more regularly in the near future. Really appreciate your time. Have a great day and enjoy your modeling out there. Without further ado, here's the final product.